Major Payne looks like 90 minutes of pure chaos, a Marine screaming his way through a school full of kids. But almost nothing about how this movie got made happened the way you would expect. Today, you are getting 18 strange secrets hiding behind that chaos. Secrets that never made it into any trailer or interview. And stick around, because the very last one is something almost nobody talks about. A secret that changes how this whole story feels. So speed up with me, because the list starts now. Number 1. The movie was already old before it even started. At first glance, Major Payne looks like the kind of movie that could only have come out of the 1990s. A screaming military hard case gets dropped into a school full of kids, and the whole thing runs on loud threats and broad comic aggression. But the story underneath was already decades old. The real foundation goes back to 1955 to The Private War of Major Benson, starring Charlton Heston. That film already had the basic shape locked in. A rigid career soldier clashes with authority, gets pushed into a military school, and ends up trying to whip a pack of unruly boys into order, complete with a softer arc where the officer changes along the way. So the 1995 movie did not have to invent the skeleton, but the remake did shift one major pressure point. The older version puts its officer up against a strict Catholic mother superior. The remake swaps her out for Dr. Emily Walburn, played by Karen Parsons, and that change rewires the whole emotional rhythm. Now, the friction is not just discipline crashing into school life. It becomes a sharper argument between Payne's brutal old-school control and Emily's gentler idea of how kids should be handled. That pushed the story into a much more modern kind of tension, aimed at a decade when black-led comedy was taking up more mainstream space, letting the Wayans style hit rougher and louder than the 1955 version ever could. The bones came from the 50s. The attitude came from a completely different era. Number 2. The lead role almost went to someone else entirely. Once the movie had its structure, everything came down to one problem. Who could actually play Payne? And the strange part is, the answer was not Damon Wayans at first. It was Martin Lawrence. In the early 90s, Martin was exploding. His sitcom was huge. His stand-up was fast, loud, and unpredictable. If he had played Payne, the movie probably would have leaned much harder into chaos, quicker, looser, more explosive, and less like a man built out of discipline. But the timing slipped. Lawrence had Bad Boys in front of him, and once that took priority, Major Payne had to go looking for a different center. That is where the movie really found itself, because the next actor did not just step into the same shape, he changed it. When Damon Wayans took the role, the whole rhythm tightened up. He had speed too, but his comedy worked differently, sharper, and more controlled. His version of Payne does not feel like a guy improvising his madness second by second. He feels locked into it, stiff-walked and clipped-voiced, so the role could have gone to Martin Lawrence and turned into a much wilder movie. Instead, Wayans made Payne feel precise, mechanical, and just believable enough to hold the whole thing together. Number 3. Wayans trained like he was actually joining the Marines. Once Wayans landed the role, he did not treat the military side like a background joke. He treated it like the part that had to work first. He spent weeks doing drill instructor-style preparation, learning the posture, the marching, the way a man like Payne takes over a room. He studied real Marine behavior closely enough that the character stopped feeling like someone doing funny soldier stuff and started moving like someone actually shaped by it. Then he layered something else on top. Real drill instructors do not just bark the same lines all day. They react and pressure people in the moment, coming up with things fast. Wayans already knew that rhythm from sketch comedy and stand-up. So once the military structure was in place, he could start playing inside it. That is why Payne never feels frozen. His discipline is real, but his intimidation keeps mutating in real time. And Wayans did not always leave that energy on set. According to Damon Wayans Jr., his father carried that drill sergeant mindset home too, staying in that mode after filming and even making his own son do push-ups, which by his son's joke, turned him into the most ripped 8-year-old around. The movie did not get a guy doing a military impression. It got a performance built on real structure first, then bent into comedy. Number 4. The plan to keep him scary off-camera backfired. Payne was supposed to feel tough with the boys the second he walked on screen, so the thinking behind the scenes was simple. Do not let that energy vanish when the scene ends. There was an early push for Wayans to stay in character around the child actors, keeping some distance and staying hard on them, even off camera, hoping that real unease would carry naturally into the film. On paper, it made sense. The problem was, the kids knew exactly who Damon Wayans was. They were not looking at him and seeing only Major Payne. They were looking at the guy from In Living Color, and more specifically, they wanted Homey the Clown. Instead of staying nervous around him, they kept asking for the voice, the routine, the whole bit, which pretty much killed the distance. Wayans eventually dropped the drill sergeant act and started bonding with them instead. And once that happened, everything loosened up. That turned out better for the movie because it never really needed the boys to fear him constantly. It needed them rattled, amused, annoyed, and slowly pulled toward him. The kids wanting Homey the Clown ended up pushing the movie toward its better version. Number 5. Every child actor had to sign away their hair. One of the funniest visual turns in Major Payne happens fast. The boys lose their hair, and suddenly the whole room reads as something Payne can actually command. The production did not want to fake that, so the shaved heads were real. Damon Wayans later said the boys playing Payne's cadets could only be cast if they agreed up front to go completely bald. Not maybe, not partly, completely. And parents had to sign off on it too before casting could move forward. If you wanted to be one of Payne's boys, you were handing over your hair before you ever learned a line. At least one kid walked away over. According to Wayans, a well-known child actor got close to the film, then dropped out once the bald head rule became unavoidable and the production replaced him without bending. The boys who stayed were not exactly thrilled either. Stephen Martini, who played Alex Stone, later joked that hate might be too strong a word, but he definitely did not enjoy that first day much. For a child actor, shaving your head is not like changing shirts, it follows you home. A joke that flashes by on screen cost real hair, real commitment, and at least one lost role behind the scenes. If you are enjoying this, take 2 seconds and leave a like. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. That support really motivates my work and helps a lot with bringing more content. Number 6. The director used to play a horror icon. The man behind the camera on Major Payne had a past nobody would ever guess from watching this movie. Nick Castle, the director, spent his early career inside a mask playing Michael Myers in the original 1978 Halloween, taking the role almost by accident as a favor to his college friend John Carpenter and getting paid $25 a day for it. By the time he showed up directing Damon Wayans in Fatigues on a Virginia prep school campus, Castle had already built one of the strangest resumes in Hollywood, sliding from silent slasher icon to family filmmaker without most audiences ever connecting the dots. His credits in between include The Last Starfighter and Dennis the Menace, and he even came close to directing Steven Spielberg's Hook before creative differences pushed him off that project. That contradiction, the most famous silent killer in horror history going on to direct a PG-13 military comedy, says everything about how unpredictable this whole production turned out to be. It also means the same steady, patient hand that once let a masked killer stalk a quiet suburban street was the hand shaping every shouted drill and every bald-headed cadet joke in this movie, which is not a connection most fans of either film ever think to make. Number 7. The military school was not a military school at all. Madison Preparatory feels too perfect to be real, with old stone buildings, open grounds, and the stiff, orderly look of a place built to break boys into shape. It feels like the kind of military school a movie would invent just so Major Payne could stomp through it. It was real. The production filmed at the Miller School of Albemarle, a boarding school founded in 1878, so that campus was already carrying the exact look the movie needed before Wayans ever stepped onto it. And the location story gets even better, because that school had already been through another movie a few years earlier. The same campus showed up in Toy Soldiers, where it played a boarding school under siege by terrorists. So by the time Major Payne arrived, this place already had a strange little screen history of elite school disaster. One movie turning the campus into a hostage zone, the next turning it into a training ground for Payne's barking insults. Same school, different war. Number 8. Payne's nephew was Wayans' real nephew. One relationship in this cast, the audience had no idea was actually a family connection. Damien Dante Wayans, who plays Cadet Williams, is Damon Wayans' actual nephew in real life. When Major Payne screams in his face that he is not his damned brother, It lands as a throwaway insult to anyone watching. But to anyone who knew the family, it was something closer to an inside joke hiding in plain sight, delivered by an uncle to his own nephew on a film set in Virginia. Damien would go on to spend years working steadily in and around the family business, eventually directing the parody film Dance Flick and several episodes of My Wife and Kids. It was never as visible a career as his uncle's, but it kept him working inside that same orbit for decades afterward. Before we keep going, subscribe if you haven't yet. Drop a comment telling me which movie or show you want me to cover next with strange behind-the-scenes facts. I read every single one. Number 9. The grenade scene is built on 2 lies. One of the toughest moments in Major Payne is also one of the fakest. Payne yanks a grenade pin with his teeth like it is nothing, and the whole scene lands exactly the way it is supposed to. Instant intimidation. The problem is, real life does not work that way. A real grenade pin is not some loose little ring waiting to slide out because a tough guy bites it. It takes real force to pull because it is designed not to come loose by accident. Try that with your own teeth, and you are more likely to lose dental work than win the scene. And the grenade itself gives the trick away too. If you look closely, the top is painted blue, which in military use means training grenade, not live explosive, so even the object in Payne's hand is safer than the scene wants you to believe. It is built on 2 layers of bluff. The move would not work, and the grenade was not real danger anyway. But realism was never the job of that beat. The job was making Payne look like a man who would bite a grenade pin without blinking and keep walking like nothing happened, and on that count, the scene works perfectly every single time. Number 10. The counselor was still playing Hillary Banks. The actress playing the school's grounded counselor had a very different day job at the time. Karen Parsons was cast as Dr. Emily Walburn, while she was still appearing as the spoiled, fashion-obsessed Hillary Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a role she played from 1990 to 1996. Stepping into a sympathetic counselor role in a military comedy was about as far from Hillary's glamorous self-absorption as a casting choice could get, and Parsons made the switch look effortless. She had already built a track record opposite comedic leading men before this, having played the female lead alongside the rap duo Kid and Play in the 1992 teen comedy Class Act. By the time Major Payne came along, she was a known quantity for grounding broad comedy with genuine warmth, which is exactly the role Emily Walburn needed to play against Payne's chaos. Number 11. The cast was quietly hiding future famous faces. At first, those boys just looked like part of the noise, a bunch of cadets getting yelled at and chased around by Major Payne. But the movie was quietly hiding a few future recognizable faces in the middle of all that chaos. The clearest one is Chris Owen, who plays Cadet Williams, the nervous, twitchy kid who already feels like he belongs to his own strange little frequency. A few years later, that same awkward intensity would make him instantly recognizable as Sherman in American Pie. Then there is Orlando Brown, who was only 7 years old when he played Tiger in his film debut. For some scenes, Wayans stayed in that intimidating Payne voice between takes, which helped keep Brown's reactions wide-eyed and unsettled in a way the camera could catch. It was a small role, but it became the first step toward the career that would later make him a familiar face on early 2000s television. At the time, they just looked like part of Payne's chaos. Years later, the movie starts looking like an accidental early showcase. Number 12. Wayans was not just the star, he was running the show. This was not a paycheck role Damon Wayans wandered into. Beyond starring as Major Payne, he served as one of the credited screenwriters and as an executive producer on the film. The production company behind it was even named Wife and Kids Productions, Wayans' own banner, a name that would resurface years afterward when he created the sitcom My Wife and Kids, suggesting the phrase was not just a throwaway label, but one he genuinely kept returning to throughout his career. Major Payne arrived after his previous starring vehicle, Blankman, had underperformed, making this a genuine swing for credibility as much as box office success. To make the character believable, though, writing credits alone were not going to be enough, which is exactly why he pushed himself so hard into the military preparation behind the role. He shaped this project from the writer's room all the way through to the camera. Number 13. The name Payne is a joke that never explains itself. It is the kind of joke so obvious it barely registers, right up until you say the title out loud. Major Payne's name is quite deliberately a pun on the word pain, describing a man whose entire personality is built around inflicting discomfort on everyone around him, from his Marine superiors to a group of teenage cadets who never asked for any of it. Nobody in the film stops to point out that Payne sounds exactly like Payne. The script just lets the audience arrive at it on their own, which is part of why it still gets a laugh from people noticing it for the first time decades after release. A title hiding in plain sight the entire time. Quick reminder to subscribe if you are enjoying these revelations. And tell me in the comments, do you know any strange fact about this movie that I did not mention? Let's build the list together. Number 14. The headmaster was almost somebody completely different. Dr. Phillips is funny the second he shows up because he feels like he wandered in from the wrong movie. While Payne is marching around like a human weapon, Phillips is off in his own soft little world, talking about butterflies and reacting to chaos like it is a scheduling problem. At first, the role was imagined for Leslie Nielsen, which makes perfect sense on paper, since Nielsen had already built a whole comic style out of authority figures who stay calm while everything around them falls apart. But Nielsen did not take it, so the movie shifted. Director Nick Castle cast William Hickey instead, partly because he had loved Hickey in Christmas Vacation, and the second that happened, Dr. Phillips changed shape entirely. Hickey did not play him like a sturdy wall of deadpan confidence. He played him like a frail, distracted little oddball who seems half a second removed from the world everyone else is living in, which makes the character funnier in a stranger way. Leslie Nielsen probably would have made the joke bigger. William Hickey made it stranger. Number 15. Payne's uniform does not match his own cadets. Military viewers noticed something off about Payne's unit long before anyone else did. Major Payne is explicitly a Marine Corps officer, but the cadets under his command wear Army JROTC unit patches and rank insignia throughout the film. In reality, a Marine officer would never be assigned to lead an Army JROTC unit, since each branch staffs and runs its own program separately, and Army units are staffed exclusively by Army personnel. It is a detail that flew completely past general audiences but never escaped anyone who actually served, and it has become one of the most frequently cited goofs whenever military veterans discuss the film online, a mismatch nobody in the movie ever addresses, sitting in plain sight the entire runtime, the kind of goof that only becomes visible once someone points out where to look. Number 16. The intimidating biker was a real wrestler. At one point, the cadets hire outside muscle to try to scare Payne into quitting, and that biker was played by Bam Bam Bigelow, a genuine professional wrestler known for his work in promotions such as WCW and the WWF. For a movie built entirely around exaggerated physical intimidation, casting an actual professional wrestler rather than a trained actor to play the muscle was a small but very deliberate choice. It gave that moment a layer of real, physical presence that no ordinary actor could really fake, the kind of size and menace that reads instantly on camera without needing a single line of dialogue to sell it. Sometimes the easiest way to sell menace on screen is just hiring someone who already carries it in real life. Number 17. The reviews were rough, but the reruns won anyway. When Major Payne opened in 1995, it did solid business, not massive, but solid. It made about $30 million. Which was decent for a loud mid-90s studio comedy. The reviews hit harder, with a lot of critics calling it a formula remake and going after it for being crude, noisy, and broad. Roger Ebert went the other way, giving it 3 out of 4 stars and praising Damon Wayans for turning Payne into a real comic character instead of just a one-note screamer. Then the movie left theaters and started building a different life, moving to VHS, then DVD, then cable, and every stop helped it grow. That second life got even stronger in Germany, where the film never had a normal theatrical run, but still became a real cult favorite through home video and constant television airings. Major Payne did not explode once and vanish. It just kept showing up until an entire audience felt like it had always been there. Fans still talk about it today as a comfort watch, the kind of loud, ridiculous comedy that is not subtle at all, but somehow only gets funnier with repeat viewings, almost at the end. And the best is still coming. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this video is reaching. Number 18. The movie's happy legacy hides something darker. Not every movie after life stays clean. Years later, Major Payne became tied to something far more troubling when Orlando Brown made disturbing public claims connected to the production, including allegations against Damon Wayans. The claims spread quickly online, but they did not come with proof and remain unverified. Wayans eventually addressed it directly, denying the allegations outright and calling Brown's claims false. At the same time, he did not respond with simple anger. He said he still cared about Brown, remembered their time on Major Payne warmly, and believed Brown was not in a good place. Wayans also explained why he had never tried to step in personally, saying they did not have that kind of relationship and that he was wary of what kind of reaction reaching out might bring. The movie never lost its comedy legacy. It just lost the luxury of feeling uncomplicated, and that is the jaw-dropping secret almost nobody talks about. The one that turns a movie people quote for laughs into a story with a far more complicated real-world footnote. And those were 18 strange facts about Major Payne. This movie never won over the critics, but it won something harder to fake: decades of people who still quote it by heart. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe, and comment which facts surprised you the most. And don't forget to suggest another movie that deserves a list of strange facts. See you in the next video.